Might not see everything, and that everything that you do out in the community, you can also inform us about where those gaps are. Because I know many of you work with us already, and others don't. So you who haven't worked with us before, or see the needs in the community that we might not be addressing, that please submit a letter of intent and see if we can fill that gap. Peggy.
I think the only other thing I would add is that from the other perspective, we would like to see proposals from agencies that really build on their strengths. What is it that you're an expert at? What is it that you can add value to the county? And if you apply in 6 or 7 different areas, I think our concern might be that you're spread a little bit thin, because we hope that everybody can hit the ground running on this. So I'd evaluate what is it that you can really contribute to. Maybe there are 2 or 3 areas. There may be areas, as Tricia said, that we haven't even identified that we think fit an area of need that you all are working on. We want to hear that, but we also want you to focus on what your real strengths are.
Anyone else want to? Okay, my project aligns with 6 of the 9 priority areas.
Bingo.
Well, mine aligns to all 9. Okay. Okay. Is it best to focus or choose one or to connect with as many as possible? I'll be sharing this information with partners. Is there any additional guidance for jurisdictions who might want to apply? So are we talking cities, jurisdictions?
But those are 2 questions.
Right. So contributing to multiple outcomes is great. If of course, we're going to want to see too how you will demonstrate that as well. And so going back to what Peggy is saying around building on your strengths, and then of course when everything comes in, for us to take a look at all of it just collectively and seeing where the gaps might be, and then having that time to partner people up. So we would highly encourage you to submit a letter of intent, whether you contribute to 1 or more of the priority areas. I think that's something that, of course, we would consider, and from a priority setting standpoint, that could be one of the criteria, right? Especially if you have a solid history about delivering those outcomes across the different areas, then we would take that into consideration. But if you contribute to just 1, we would take a look at that too. We'd take a look at them equally. And then sharing information, so additional guidance for jurisdictions who might want to apply. We're using the same process for all organizations, including the cities, because I know some of the cities have expressed interest in applying. Is there a particular size or scope of project that is more preferable? For example, regarding habitat restoration in county parks. Will small efforts of just a few $1,000s within single parks be considered, or are broader projects spanning multiple parks preferred?
For county parks, we want specifics on the project, like where, acres, very discrete projects, and whether that can be broken out in a single proposal covering several parks, so bundling projects, or separately, either way. But we do want specifics. And we'd love to partner and work with you on your proposal too.
The other thing that I'd add to that is, even if it's a small project, it could be a pilot project. We look at Measure A as an opportunity to test ideas, to see things that might grow and expand. So if you've got something you think is starting small, look for a partner. If it fits our criteria, I would submit it as a pilot concept, and hopefully it's very successful and we can expand it in future years.
Okay, and I do want to reinforce that, and our board members want to see any innovative, new ideas out there where we can try it at a small scale to see if it works, and then we can expand it if it does, and it's something that we want to do long term. So again, those organizations that are that might still need to create relationships with the county if you're new in the area or providing a new set of services that work, we would encourage you to apply.
Thank you. I just want to thank, excuse me, all the staff for making this, for walking us through all this. It's obviously needed and it's really welcome. And I just wanted to be sure that what Ms. Finley just mentioned with the invitation to work together on refining the project, does that go for all of the departments? I suspected as much, and thank you again.
The answer is yes. Okay, Marlene, invasive species. Where is this at? Invasive species. Regarding proactive efforts against invasive species, could that include efforts outside parks themselves to address areas that provide footholds and breeding grounds for emerging invasives, such as roadsides, neighborhoods, or other corridors that are not official open spaces?
I don't know what the rules are in the county, but we certainly have been talking about this. That, you know, if we remove invasives and we replant in the parks and then there's a source right next to the park, why shouldn't we be working on that too? So Peggy, do you want to answer?
Yeah, it actually crosses multiple departments. I mean, Marlene is in charge of the Parks Department. We have our County Agriculture Commissioner who is in charge of invasive sort of overall, and then our Public Works Department is responsible for maintaining the rights of ways along all of our county roads, and invasive species are an issue there too. So if somebody is very interested in that, I would suggest they get in touch with us and we can convene that group to see what the best approach might be.
Okay, for agencies that are already doing work in the priority areas, are already doing work, can we apply for general operating support to sustain or expand existing projects and services? Does it have to be an all-new project?
In terms of the health system's answer to that, I think we're really interested in seeing new services and new impacts. We're not really interested in using this process to look at the question of whether operating support is adequate for existing services. We do believe that question is something we entertain every year in our budget process, and no doubt we'll entertain it again, but we don't think that it makes sense to be using the Measure A process for that.
So yes, if you already have an existing agreement with the county that's outside of the Measure A funding, please work with that department to review your current level of service. Okay, if we are an existing Measure A grantee and want to expand our existing services as well as add some new service offerings, should we fill out a letter of intent for all new services in addition to our current service? So this is kind of a gray area, because if you are already getting Measure A funding, then we need to work with our departments to take a look at the impacts that have already been contributed. So it's like taking a look at that as part of our regular budget process, or whether or not we want to continue Measure A funds. This process is primarily for new. It's for new proposals. So if you want to expand the services, I would ask that you work with the department that you're partnered with now and see whether it's something that we want to include as part of continuing Measure A or as a new Measure A proposal. I think those are all the cards that we have. Are there any?
Great. You might have said this, but I'm going back on the expansion one. I mean, I think, and I have talked to, or some nonprofits have talked with us in housing, I know, on expansion of services. So I'm not sure if this is different what you said or not, but if there's something successful that's going on that gets people housed, and doing more of it gets more people housed, we're interested. So I think that it could be an expansion. I hear a lot of the questions, I'm very sympathetic, putting myself in your shoes of how to make successful applications, like the questions about, you know, multiple projects and so on. So there is a lot of strategy to go on. And so I talk to folks about, you know, think about what this is doing and what a success it is and what more it could do. If it's framed in terms of, well, we have a half-time worker who's going to have to be laid off unless we get this money, not a good strategy. So it's, it's like, no, this could be expanded, and here would be the results, and the forecast of results is critical to it. So it doesn't all have to be, in my view, it doesn't all have to be bright, new, and shiny, because really super valuable things are being done already, and those could benefit from expansion. So it's a little bit of both, but what I'm also saying is strategy. In terms of the, you know, picture, probably this, whoever the committee ends up being, you know, working at 9 o'clock at night, going through several hundred of these, what's the strategy of keeping their attention?
Make it creative.
Sorry to be blunt.
Just to expand a little bit on what Bill said, I think that if I were submitting an application for what I was already doing, and I know that a lot of you do very good work that does not have long-term funding, I would look at marketing it as to what is the change in the demand for this service. Say, for example, around housing. You know, I think we all know that the cost of housing has gone up substantially over the last few years, 4 years, 5 years in San Mateo County. And if you can document the demand for your services has outpaced your ability to provide those services, and you need to continue, and you want to continue that, and you can demonstrate there's been good results with what you've been doing, I think that would make a compelling argument. The only other thing that I would add is that I just want you all to know that when we work with our county departments, we're not using Measure A to fund ongoing programs for them. The things that we're expecting the departments to do, with a few exceptions, and those exceptions were specifically called out in the language of Measure A and the ballot measure language. Measure A is being used for new initiatives and to support infrastructure. We had a long period of time where we weren't maintaining our infrastructure because we didn't have the funding. We're using Measure A to do that. So that's another thing that we're looking at. So be strategic, as Bill said, look at what the needs are, but also know that we're being tasked at the county as employees to look at new programs, new initiatives, and demonstrate the return on that investment.
Okay, thanks, Peggy. So let me take a quick moment to introduce John Keene, who's our Chief Probation Officer, who just joined us. So, John, I don't know if you might want to take a few minutes just to talk about probation and what priorities you might have.
Thank you. So moving into the new year, probation has really always been an organization that has waited for people to come to the door for us to service them. And one of the things that I really want to try to do as we develop programs moving forward is to look at what can we do from a preventative perspective. The use of data and the use of collaboration here at the county has allowed for us to really look deeper down the road and be more predictive than I think we've ever been before. We have some very positive models that juvenile justice, for example, has kind of sat in place for a very long time. We have many long-standing supportive collaborators in the community that we've worked with. And so now we would like to take the next steps to look at what can we do to really get those kids and those families, not just the children, but the families, to really work with them early on in the process to help prevent the kids from getting in the system in the first place from a juvenile perspective. So as I start to look for opportunities to collaborate moving forward, I'm looking for innovative programs that really will focus in on children at an earlier age than ever before. And I know for a lot of folks that is kind of difficult for them to kind of wrap their head around because juvenile justice primarily has always looked at teenagers as the primary focal point for the programs and the services that we provide. But I think as we move towards a more evidence-based approach, one of the things that we're finding out now more than ever, that we need to get ahead of this sooner. And we need to work with children sooner and not necessarily wait for them to become a member of the system to say, now we'll figure out ways to support them and strengthen them. There's a lot of work that we know demonstrates that if you can work with kids as early as middle school, and I know that is a little shocking for some people to wrap their head around, but as early as middle school and even sometimes as early as elementary school, to start to plant the seeds to work with not only staying out of the juvenile justice system, but also really having a real heart-to-heart conversation with parents around what we look at now from a society perspective about what is no longer acceptable in schools. So when we think about kind of the use of suspensions and expulsions and things of that nature, how it translates into juvenile justice, a lot of that is because parents really, quite frankly, are not as informed as we all think they are. So I'm really looking for programs that really will speak to early engagement and engagement on a family level, not just with the kids themselves.
Okay, thanks, John. So and maybe I can make some comments around the type of money Measure A is, right? So it is limited term. The voters agreed to give us the sales tax for 10 years. So where can we make the biggest impacts over 10 years of time? And so going back to what John said, the investment of $10 million towards the big lift, the county normally doesn't spend a lot of money on education. That's not our jurisdiction. But we know that if we spend money as early as possible, and really starting at 3-4 years old, and when they get to third grade, we're still within the 10-year window of Measure A, and we can see those impacts that they're actually reading at that level. The likelihood is they're going to graduate from high school. They're going to get a better job if we can track them from 3-4 years old to reading third grade. And after that, I mean, if there is evidence there that says they will graduate from high school, they'll get a good job, they'll stay out of our jail, they'll stay out of our emergency room. So those are the kinds of things that when you're thinking about proposals, it's this window of opportunity. So some of it will go towards, we're going to fix those things that we've neglected over the recession. So our infrastructure, our parks, our libraries, our fire stations, our fire engines, all of that. We need to take care of all of that. But then there's also a portion that we need to be able to use the money to show ongoing impact. So if we invest it now and we can see that it works, those are the things we're going to do more of after the 10 years, right? Because we know these things work. So we want to encourage pilot programs. We want to try a lot of different things to see if they work or not. This is the time to learn and kind of fail, right? Fail, learn, and see what works, and to invest in those things over the next several years. We have 8 years to go that can make some significant impacts in the community. Any other questions? We don't have any more. I think I got all the cards. Other questions? Yes.
If we have questions after today, do they have to just go through you and through the email, or can we ask the specific departments that we contract with about ideas that we have, or?
So we're encouraging everyone to submit it through the email address so that we can respond to it and share the answer with everyone. So the Measure A email address, and we're getting to those pretty quickly. I mean, we get to them within 24 hours. So if you do have a question, we can pass that along to our departments and get those answered.
I just have a nitty-gritty question. Should the letter be addressed to the department head or to you?
It's a form, and then you have a one-page summary, and it's sent to the Measure A email.
So no, like dear
Address.
so-and-so.
Mm-mm. They're all just coming into one place, and then we'll go through the process of sorting through them and then getting our committee together. And you'll get a confirmation that we got it That was another question that we had before, is will we get an email confirmation that we got it, the proposal? Yes?
Okay, we have a question. We were gonna, it was very specific, so.
We're here till 4:30.
Just keep this going. So a few of us had an idea together through, and it's basically for aging and adult services, Lisa. So through the New Beginning Coalition, which you're aware of that, it's, basically we wanted to see if we could leverage the current funds to expand some current services for people that we just don't have funding to serve, that we're already turning away. And to meet the needs of the growing population of baby boomers that we know are coming over the next 15 years. And also another idea we had was about maybe initializing a friendly visiting program and work through the New Beginning Coalition to work with the whole system of providers to be a part of it together, and maybe have the funding, an application through Aging Adult Services to choose to work with the existing providers. And then that would help to meet isolation, helping people to age in place, etc.
So for Aging Adult Services, some of our priorities are around protection, around supporting older adults to remain in their home as safely as long as possible, and prevention opportunities. So something you're talking about, the friendly visitor, which I can't even remember when we used to have a program like that. That was years ago. That's a new creative, an idea that we could bring back that was reduced many years ago in the Older Americans Act funding. So those are some of those ideas that I think we can work on together. Be interested in that?
All right, other questions? Well, we're here. All right, so thank you all for coming. We will post, we have FAQs now on the website. We'll add all the questions that came up from here. We'll send out the list of organizations. And again, January 9th is the deadline for the letter of intent. Thank you for your interest.